All right, welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA basketball. I'm still getting intro. It's not just Philly sports anymore; it's the whole league. So, I'm getting used to introducing myself that way because I'm just such a Philly guy. I'm happy to have a very special guest on the show today, my boy K.Dickson. You guys know I definitely worked with him over at Section 215. That's kind of how we linked up, thanks to David Esser.
Yeah,
and my guy's doing big things with the Bullpen Blues pod over on PSN. You guys can definitely catch him there if you want to catch up on all the Phillies and MLB stuff. But welcome to the show, Kevin. Thanks for coming on, man.
thanks for having me, bro. It's been something I've been wanting to do. So when you reached out, it's no brainer for me to join you, man. No brainer. Thanks so much.
No problem at all, man. I'm happy to have you on. Very knowledgeable, not only in Philly sports, but sports all around, man. You cover it all: hockey, basketball, football, baseball. I mean, you got it all covered. So I'm happy to get to pick your brain and get to talk about some Sixers as well as the rest of the NBA here. Be sure to go give my man a follow on Twitter. He's always putting out new articles, new podcast episodes, great takes on sports. You can follow him at K.Dickson53 on Twitter. Be sure to go give him a follow and make sure to go follow Bullpen Blues as well. As you guys know, you can find me on Twitter at Scotty Drown. That's my personal page. And you can find the sports page at ST Philly Sports 1. This podcast is presented to you by Heat Ratio Sports. You can find them at Heat Ratio SN. New page, so be sure to go out and follow them, get our followers back up on that page. Welcome to the show, man. We're going to talk some Eastern Conference NBA basketball to start here. Obviously, I know you heard about the James Harden's trade to the Nets. He's played 5 games with them now, 3-2 to start off with Harden. I think they're third or fourth in the East. It doesn't really matter right now. Things are just starting to shape up. How are you feeling about the Nets, man? And the whole Eastern Conference, or is the Nets the team to beat in the Eastern Conference, or do they still have some stuff to prove to everybody else?
In my opinion, they are the team to beat. Look, you throw these kind of talents together, it's not just going to click instantly. They got to get used to playing together. And what I thought back to was the Heat Big Three back in 2010.
Yeah.
Granted, they didn't win the NBA title that year, but they went 9-8 in their first 17 games. And so it took some time to get adjusted and get used to playing together. I get it. Durant and Harden played together, but what was that, 8, 9, 10 years ago now?
A while ago, man.
Harden was a completely different player. He was in a different role. I think when you have 3 guys like that on your roster, there's no question they're the team to beat. And it's not as if they don't have anything else. DeAndre Jordan's a good role-playing he's their starting center. He's a good role player. They got Shamet. They got Joe Harris, Jeff Green. Like, they have other guys on the roster. But, yeah, I mean, if Durant, Harden, and Irving are healthy, there's no question to me they're the team to beat. And how about Kevin Durant, man? What he's doing coming off the torn Achilles. I mean, the question was, would he be able to return to the level of play? You could argue he's exceeded it. He's averaging 31 points a game. He looks better than ever, man. He looks phenomenal.
Yeah, and he's you mentioned it, man. He's leading them, I believe, in assists and rebounds as well. Well, no, Harden probably leads them in assists now, but second to Harden, maybe third to Irving, but still, it's career highs in assist numbers as well. So he's doing it all, and I'm glad you brought up Durant and coming off that injury because he's definitely a lot of talk, and we'll get into Embiid later, but right now, these two guys, I mean, Embiid's receiving a lot of the hype right now, but Kevin Durant is kind of going under the radar, I guess, because they just got Harden and all of that. But he's putting up, the similar type numbers to Embiid. And, I think I'm kind of torn on the Nets, man. Part of me knows that, those guys can drop 30 each any night. You know what I mean? And James Harden, the trouble that he had with the Rockets, closing out series and, get into the Western Conference Finals and crumbling against the Warriors, whatever the case may be, you have Kevin Durant now. And Kevin Durant is the guy that will close it out. If nobody else will, he will. Kyrie Irving hits big shots. So, James Harden isn't going to be relied on like he was, in Houston for everything. And I think he's, taking this role at coming in. You've already seen it. He's taken a less of a scoring approach and more of a playmaking approach. And, where my criticism comes in on the Nets and where I have question marks is, you mentioned DeAndre Jordan, but after DeAndre Jordan, the size, Jeff Green is getting minutes at center right now.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I think, when the buyouts come around, they'll reach in there and they'll grab, maybe a veteran role player that can, be a backup center, something like that. But that's probably the biggest concern is the inside defense, the inside defense there. Yeah. Losing a guy like Jared Allen. I think he was the guy, specifically against the Sixers, that was really annoying to see Embiid play against. And now, DeAndre Jordan is a very good center, especially to have with those three superstars. If he gets into foul trouble against a guy like Embiid or, against a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, it does worry me the inside presence that they're going to lack there as far as on the defensive end. But you mentioned it, they got shooting. Joe Harris, Shamet. I mean, they got guys that can score, put the ball in the net. And a lot of the nights, they're going to be able to outscore you no matter what. So, we talk about defense, but these guys are going to outscore you. And you just have to hope and pray, that you can just keep up with your whole team can keep up with those three guys, which on a regular night, that's not going to happen very often, man.
Yeah, and just think, like, Joe Harris and Shamet are both, like, elite three-point shooters.
Yeah,
like, they're going to be open a lot.
Yeah.
Teams are going to have to compensate for the other players on the court. You're going to see a lot of open jumpers for those guys. And like you said, like, you might shut down Harden, you might shut down Durant, but then you have Kyrie. He might drop 40. Like, any night those guys can go off. I don't know if you saw, but there was just a report that they're linked to JaVale McGee and Kevin Love. I don't understand how they'll get Kevin Love to work, like, financially. I don't know how that would work.
It's expensive, but
a guy like that. I mean, it's just completely that flaw on their roster. Because you're right, they don't have a lot of good guys, but yeah, man, it's tough. Like, they have so much scoring. It's going to be tough to beat them.
And I think, you just hit another point right there with Joe Harris and Shamet, elite three-point shooters. Obviously, Harden, Kyrie, and Durant are elite three-point shooters. Even Jeff Green can knock down some three. You know what I mean? These guys can score. And, I think that's what would concern me if I'm the Sixers specifically is you can't match their threes with twos. You know what I mean? When it comes down to it, when these guys are hitting. Luckily, the Sixers added some shooting. We'll get into that in a little bit. But, just looking around the rest of the Eastern Conference, I think the Eastern Conference has gotten way better in recent years, especially this season. You look at the Heat, who are still there, the Celtics, the Bucks. I think the Pacers are even creeping up near the top of the rankings right now. But, teams like the Bucks, the Celtics, I think can challenge the Nets. I think the Sixers can challenge the Nets. But, until you beat them, I mean, the Nets are the guys with the targets on their back. That's where you're trying to get. Nobody's going to receive more attention than they are, which, rightfully so. We don't know what to expect just yet. But so far, I mean, 3-2, they've played some decent teams so far. But, the story is still to be written on them and that chemistry. And once they actually get it figured out, where there could be a situation where you split these lineups up and maybe, not saying Harden comes off the bench, but maybe he runs a little bit more with the second unit. Yeah. As they figure it out, it's crazy what you can do with three guys like that. It's actually ridiculous.
I think it's a little unfair to Harden, too. Like, all the criticism he gets for his playoff shortcomings, like, there was a dynasty in the Western Conference for the last couple years. Like, it's not as if, he was losing to the Sacramento Kings or something.
Right.
Like, dude, they were literally, like, falling short to the Warriors. That's really nothing to hang your head about.
Yeah, that's spot on as well. That Warriors team with Kevin Durant is arguably one of the best teams ever.
Even without him. I mean, they still
even without Kevin Durant, like arguably, had the best record in a single season ever. So, that's not like you're losing to some bums out there. It was obviously before LeBron and company got out there, but Harden's a great player. Anybody that denies that, in reality, we made a big fuss about this in Philadelphia, what you would give up for Harden. But, I mean, could you just imagine Harden and Embiid right now? I mean, the way Embiid is playing right now, it would be ridiculous. And I was fully on the Ben train. I was totally against trading a young guy for a 30-year-old. But when you look at the window that the Sixers have, and we can jump right into this right now, transition into some Sixers talk. The window with the Sixers, man, and Joel Embiid and the way he's finally showing up. Let me not phrase it that way. The way he has taken his game to another level, finally to where we as Sixers fans projected him to be, which is at the top of the league. MVP numbers right now. I mean, the last 3 games, I was just looking at it before we hopped on here, 38 points a game, 11, 12 rebounds, and shooting over 62% from the field. I mean, what else can you ask for? He's doing it on both ends. I do wish he would stop, flopping around a little bit there. I think he's going to hurt himself, man, throwing himself on the ground like that. That's probably why his back hurts. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about the Sixers team? How realistic of a contender are they? How do you feel so far, man?
Well, my scale may be inflated a bit because I'll be honest, I wasn't in love with the Sixers the last couple of years. I just didn't like how they constructed their roster.
Yeah.
I thought they went all in too soon on Butler and Harris. I thought they were a year or so too soon, and it kind of is proven to be correct this year because Embiid's peaking now. He's at his peak. It's tough. So personally, now the way they're constructed now, I love this team. I'm having a lot of fun watching them. So throw in the fact that I wasn't really thrilled with how they were built and how they did go all in. I'd say now I'm at like an 8 or a 9. I'm very excited for this team. I think they absolutely can compete with the Nets. We did say the Nets are the team to beat, but that doesn't mean they can't be beat. I think the Sixers could hang with them. They are going to need more from Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Just offensively. Look, he doesn't need to average 20 a game, but he can't average 12. If he can get to a 16, 8, and 8, like he's at 12, 8, and 8 right now, just a couple more points a game. I think it would make a huge difference. But the way this team's built, like Tobias Harris has reemerged.
Yeah.
I mean, he's having arguably his best season. He's shooting 45% from 3.
Yeah.
Like he's been outstanding. He's shooting 90% from the line. Seth Curry, 56% from 3 on 5 attempts a game. Like that's insane. He's yet to miss a free throw this year too. Did you know that? He's shooting 100%.
No, I did not know he's 100%, man.
100% from the strike on 2 attempts a game, but still, like that's what 35, 40 attempts he probably has this year.
And he missed some games, so I mean, he's money. I mean, not missing.
Shake Milton. I mean, his breakout. He looks like the 6th man of the year. So like they actually have done a really good job now building the roster. I can't believe that they got Seth Curry for Josh Richardson. I can't believe that. And it's just clicking, man. And how about that fadeaway 3 Embiid hit the other night, late in the game? Like that's just like he's on another level right now, man.
Yeah, confidence on top of it's. And
that was one of those. He shot it, and you're like, "No, what are you doing?" And he hits it. You're like, "Oh, all right." So yeah, my excitement is very high. I'm really enjoying this team a lot. And I mean, it kind of all fell in place, man. They got Doc Rivers, then they get Daryl Morey. I mean, it's just like how perfect it aligned for them this year. And to hammer it home more your point on Harden, I probably would have done the trade. But like the Sixers, they didn't call the Sixers back. So like it kind of right. Like isn't that the report? Like they didn't really appear that they wanted to trade with the Sixers.
Yeah,
so it is what it is. The way they're built, they can compete.
Yeah, and you pointed it out there that the Rockets owner said that he was never going to make a trade, for Harden with Daryl Morey. Like it wasn't going to happen. So, understandable, and it is what it is. Like you said, maybe they will make a trade closer to the trade deadline. I think as the better they perform with this team, we're going to see some real tests over the next couple of weeks, especially this week. With the Lakers coming to town, or do we? I'm not sure if we play them in LA or not, but regardless, the matchup with the Lakers, that's going to be the biggest test of the season so far. Even though, it's regular season, whatever. I know that the Sixers are going to want to win this game to prove something.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be interesting to see, how it plays out over that time, because I think that's what's going to determine, how Ben plays over these next couple games. If the Sixers need to make another move before the trade deadline to get another piece in there. If not, the only thing I could see them maybe getting one more bench piece, a role player, power forward, something of that nature, just a backup guy to kind of, take Mike Scott out of the situation a little bit. But aside from that, right now, I don't see a huge glaring need. You see Ben Simmons, whenever Seth Curry is out there with that starting lineup, they're undefeated. And you mentioned it. Seth brings, automatic shooting. I mean, he's a pure shooter. The best thing we've had since JJ Redick. And, he's probably better than JJ Redick at this point. Better playmaker, better ball handler, and he plays serviceable defense.
Yep.
But Ben Simmons I think he's been kind of feeling it out. Now, mind you, I'm not happy with the 12 points. That's I believe it might be a career low for him.
Yeah.
But 12 points. I mean, that's how many buckets? Six buckets. You can get more buckets than that. You can get to the free throw line more than that. You should automatically be getting 15 points just for how athletic he is. You know what I mean? It's a little ridiculous. But he fills the other voids, passing the ball, facilitating, rebounding, playing defense. I mean, he's one of the best defenders in the NBA. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I guess what I did last year is I fooled myself. I'm optimistic, tried to fool myself into liking the Horford signing. That was idiotic. And he's not fit today's, basketball small ball. If we have to match up against a team like the Celtics, that's not going to work. But, you get a guy like Dwight Howard on a minimum, veteran contract as a backup center for Joel Embiid, and you just can't beat that. I mean, you look at the pieces they've added, Shake Milton emergence, Tyrese Maxey, God forbid somebody goes down like a Shake Milton, like a Ben Simmons. You have a backup point guard there that can play. You know what I mean? So I think that's the other thing that, obviously injuries factor into everything. That's something the Sixers have struggled with down the stretch is one of these guys going down. And that's one thing that I'm just, praying doesn't happen this season. Hopefully we can just keep a healthy roster. Even guys like Seth Curry, we saw the difference that Seth Curry made when he's not in the lineup. And, maybe it's a good or a bad thing that you're relying on a guy like Seth Curry, but I think he's surprised everybody. Everybody thought he was a pure shooter, but he's came in and become more than that with the Sixers. And even guys like Danny Green, you don't need him to hit 5 threes a night. If you can just do it 1 out of, every 4 games, that's great for the Sixers. That's more than what they had. But yeah, I'm with you on the Sixers, man. How did you like those Celtics matchups? I know, we swept them over the 2-game span there. The Flyers weren't so lucky with Boston. I didn't want to bring that up, but that one kind of bothered me. Especially Saturday night. But we don't need to get into that right now. We're talking about good stuff. I know Celtics didn't have Jason Tatum. How did you just feel about those 2 matchups, against the Celtics there? Another contender in the East.
Well, I'm not surprised that they were tight games. I understand they didn't have Tatum, but it's still a rivalry. Like, those guys are still going to get up for those games.
And they're well coached.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought – especially that second game, the thing that was so good about it was the Sixers' best players took over in the fourth quarter. Like Ben Simmons, what do you have, 11 points in the fourth quarter the other night? Joel Embiid went crazy. Yeah. And that's the mark of a championship team. Your star players are stars. They do what they're supposed to do, and they lead. And that was a great sign the other night. Yeah. I saw, how Twitter gets, man. It was so negative, like, this team, like, they can't even beat the Tatumless Celtics, like, they're hanging with them. But, I mean, it's the NBA, man. At the end of the day, like, the Cavs just swept the Nets. Like, it's the NBA. Like, these guys are going to get up to play. I was very encouraged. And the fact that the Sixers won both games, at the end of the day, I don't care if they win by 1. I don't care if they win by 40, man. It counts the same in the win column.
Exactly.
Yep. So I was really encouraged at just how their star players seized the moment, and they went and grabbed it, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah. I think you hit it right there. I mean, the Celtics still had Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, who
Walker was out there.
Kemba Walker. I mean, these guys are all-star level players between Kemba and Jaylen Brown. And they have guys that can fill voids. Whenever you have guys that can make plays, and you have a great head coach. I mean, they're gonna know how to stick around. That was the difference of the game. The games is the 2 superstars, the 3 superstars, if you want to count Tobias, who was actually pretty clutch in that game as well. So that's the difference in the game. In the fourth quarter, those guys took over. The other guys didn't because they're not as good as those guys. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
I think the Sixers did what they had to do. You see them come out against a team like the Pistons who has 3 wins. You only beat them by 4. A win is a win, man. And, it's a long season. They're going to drop games. I think that's where people get so misconstrued with, baseball and basketball and hockey, compared to like the NFL where you play 1 game a week and that game is, 1 out of 16 games, 1 out of 16 chances that you get a win. It's not like that in the NBA, the MLB, and the NHL, man. There's a ton of games and you're going to drop some games that you're not supposed to lose simply. You know what I mean? I look forward to these bigger games. Now, you get past the Pistons tonight. You got the Lakers on Wednesday, which just kind of transitions to the next topic. We're going to talk about the Lakers a little bit. But how are you liking this matchup against the Lakers for the Sixers? We'll get into other contenders against the Lakers, but just with this matchup coming on Wednesday, I find it to be a very interesting matchup, man, because, Ben Simmons, nobody can guard LeBron in reality, but Ben Simmons can guard LeBron. He's an athletic guy. He's a big guy. Similar to LeBron in build. Obviously LeBron's a better player. I'm going down that road. But I do look at Ben. He's a first-team all-defensive NBA player, going against LeBron. And then you got AD, who is obviously a top, 5, top 10 guy, maybe even top 3 in some people's books. Not playing the greatest basketball to start the season. They had a short break as the champions. But Joel Embiid is playing like an MVP right now. Tobias Harris playing at a high level. How do these teams match up, man? Because it seems like the Lakers are actually better than what they were last year.
Well, not to get ahead of ourselves here, but I think the Lakers are the team to beat in the entire NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they're the champs, but
right.
Like just in terms of, I think they're going to be the team that you're going to need to knock off.
Yeah.
I'm very excited, though. You get to see Embiid, Davis, LeBron, Ben. I mean, those are always fun matchups.
Yeah, man.
And the big thing with the Sixers is it's kind of like we were just saying, it's kind of like a benchmark game. Like, where are you with the elites of the NBA?
Right.
That's where we're getting to here. Like, let's see how they match up. I think the Sixers should be able to beat them. I definitely do. They're going to need their best games from guys like Tobias and Seth Curry. They're going to need those guys to continue to play as well as they are. But I don't see any reason why the Sixers can't beat them. Like on any given night, the Sixers can beat them. But with the way these guys are playing right now, Embiid always seems to dominate Davis for whatever reason. He always seems to have the upper hand on him. And you're right. Nobody can guard LeBron, but Ben Simmons might be your best bet. In terms of length and his size and his speed, he can stay with him.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun game, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. I thought
Sixers win would be big.
Yeah, I think it would be huge. And, I think that's part of it. I think the Sixers may take it a little bit more serious than what the Lakers may. They're the defending champs. But, when it gets down to crunch time, LeBron's going to play. He's a competitor. He wants to win. And he probably sees this as a marquee matchup as well. This is their chance to show that they're still here. This is a rising Sixers team at the top of the Eastern Conference. It's a chance for, LeBron loves making his mark on national television. So it'll be interesting, man. I think it's interesting. You called it a benchmark game. It's so true. Because, what I would say, I guess the Celtics were kind of a benchmark game as well. People aren't going to hold it with full weight because Jason Tatum wasn't there. Before that, it was probably the Nets up until you heard that KD and Kyrie weren't playing that game. But then the Sixers get smoked by the Nets' second team. You know what I mean? So, we're kind of waiting for that marquee win that has no excuses. And I think this is the game. So, you hit it on the head. The matchups are there. We just got to see how these play out. What I'm hoping is that guys like Seth Curry, guys like, Dwight Howard come out and, just give us good minutes. Like they've been doing, just show up against the big teams. That's all I'm really asking. I just don't want to see, guys disappear. And that's what's happened in the past. But, this team has shown, especially with Doc Rivers, he makes a point to get guys involved. And, you mentioned Ben Simmons earlier. I think it's interesting how Doc Rivers has decided to get him involved in the offensive end, throwing him in the post a little bit more, throwing him into pick and rolls where he can keep momentum going to the basket. He's just putting him in good situations, and I think that's exactly what Ben needs. He's a guy that needs to get easy buckets to get comfortable. And I think Doc Rivers is doing a great job of that. You mentioned that the Lakers are the team to beat in the NBA. Are there – well, I guess you've already said that there's teams that can beat them. Who would you think is the best chance to beat the Lakers as of right now?
All right, so I got a small collection of teams. In the West, obviously the Clippers, I believe, are the top team that would give them the run for their money. I understand they came up short last year. I think that's a little bit of fool's gold.
Yeah.
If it happened again, I think there's no question the Clippers would have knocked off the Nuggets. I don't know if they would have beat the Lakers, but it would have been a better series.
Right.
The Jazz playing pretty well, man. Mike Conley is really, really clicking. He's got that team rolling with Donovan Mitchell as well and Gobert. I don't know if they could beat the Lakers in a series, but they're a really, really good team. They're a great defensive team.
Yeah.
Great defensive team. You figure, at least in the post, you can stick Gobert on Davis. They're a team I think that could give the Lakers some fits. In the East, I think the Nets could give them a run for their money. The Bucks, I'm not 100% sold on the Bucks, man, but I do think that they could maybe hang with them a little bit, maybe win a game or two in a series.
Yeah.
And I think the Sixers could hang with them as well. I don't know if anybody can beat them right now, but because I do have them as the best team in the NBA.
Right.
But those are the collection of teams that I think are legitimate contenders, could actually give them a little bit of run. Other than that, it's the NBA, man. You know how it is. There's always like 3 or 4 or 5 teams that have a legitimate chance to win, and then you have everybody else.
Yeah. And I think you're, spot on there. The only – I guess I'm still, waiting on the Miami Heat to see what they're about. They haven't really been healthy all season coming off of that, championship run last year. That's one team I would watch. The Celtics, of course, we'll see, how they're rolling with Jason Tatum back. The Nuggets, they've started out kind of slow, in the Western Conference. And then, the Suns are another team that has kind of risen up, with Chris Paul there, Devin Booker. But those are teams that are, a year, maybe 2 years away from really competing. So, I'm not counting those guys up there with the Clippers. I think you hit it right on the head with the Clippers. I think they're already playing better than what they did last year for most of the season. And, it was just a team that was just thrown together. A lot of, pieces that didn't fit. You had Kawhi and Paul George playing together for the first time, relying a little too much on bench guys for, so this year, I think they have it more figured out. They're going a little bit more under the radar. The Lakers are catching all the attention there, and the Clippers are kind of just coasting. I think the Clippers are right there. The Bucks, man, I'm not sold either, man. And what gets me is, they traded Eric Bledsoe and George Hill for Drew Holiday, and they think that makes them a better team. I'm a Drew Holiday guy. I love Drew Holiday. I just don't know if he brings more than those two players, when in reality, Drew Holiday's not some knockdown shooter either. You know what I mean? Compared to like an Eric Bledsoe, he's a better shooter. He's not a knockdown pure shooter, though. And I think Giannis just needs pure shooting around him because he can't shoot. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. People talk about Ben Simmons and how, teams build that wall in the paint against him. Well, they do the same thing to Giannis. And when he can't get dunks and layups, he's almost ineffective. I mean, similar to Ben Simmons on offense, completely can be erased from the game. And, until he takes that next step, that's when I'll take the Bucks serious. I'm not sure that the Bucks will even make it out of the East, man. I really, against a team like the Nets, Celtics, even the Sixers this season, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? You ask yourself, they lost to who last year? Did they lose to the Celtics or the Heat last year?
The Heat, I believe.
The Heat. So
yeah.
Did the Bucks get better, do you think? I mean, maybe they got a little bit better with Drew Holiday. Maybe. I mean, that's to be argued. I just don't think they got better. Giannis got his big contract. That's good. He's always going to put up MVP numbers in the regular season. You got to see it in the playoffs, simply.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to disrespect the Celtics. They were supposed to be in that cluster. I just didn't touch them. Yeah, they were supposed to be in that cluster as well because with Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Kemba, they're a damn good team as well. So for any Celtics fans watching, I did not mean to intentionally leave you guys out.
When they will, they'll come after you, man. You got to watch out.
That was not on purpose. So I would put them in there as well. Yeah, imagine Giannis with guys like Seth Curry and Jake and Tobias Harris right now.
Yeah,
I mean it would be unbelievable, and that's why I'm not completely sold on him. Like we said, I don't think the gap between Holiday and Eric Bledsoe is that big.
Yeah,
I really don't. Holiday's an all-star. Eric Bledsoe's a great player. He's not a great player. He's a very good player. I've said very good. I don't think the gap's
skill set as well.
Yeah, I don't think the gap's that big. So I'm with you, man. I'm not sold on them yet. I would have the Sixers, Celtics, and the Nets above them.
Yeah, that's probably about where I would have them as well. You hit it right on the head with the Celtics, man. That's actually a team, while I think we have good matchups, it's not a team I'd really want to play in the playoffs, man. I'd rather somebody knock them off before, just because, history with Philly and Boston. I mean, it would be nice to be the team to knock them off.
Sweet.
But, that's a very tough team. These guys have been playing together for a while, specifically Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And Marcus Smart. So they got like a system there with Brad Stevens and everything's like built in. They're just always going to be there. You know what I mean? Celtics is definitely a team to watch out for. And, they played us tough. I thought it was interesting, Marcus Smart called out the refs on the flailing of Embiid. And then that next game, man, the refs did not give shit.
Yeah. Smart went down with the fake elbow from Embiid. Embiid's like, dude, he's serious?
Right. Like, you're really going to say that to me. No, but you hit it right on the head. Lakers the team to beat. How do you feel about the Warriors with Steph, man? I feel like they just don't have enough. Like, it's just not
there. They're a fun team. They're fun because they're probably going to have a lot of high-scoring games. But no, I don't think that they're on that level. If they had Clay, I think it'd be a different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's great they added a guy like James Wiseman. He hasn't been exceptional or anything. He's been okay so far. Now, I just don't think they have enough. But they're going to be a fun team. And they were a fun team before they were contenders. Before they went on to win the NBA title and then became the dynasty that they were, I was a big fan of them. I really liked Steph's game. Loved him at Davidson, growing up. Yeah, I assume we're probably around the same age. So, he was like, that was like our era,
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So they'll be a fun team to watch, but we got the better carry this year. Now, I'm just
hey, people have really been saying that, and I know, there's somebody out there that's like making the argument for real. Yeah. You know what I mean? There's somebody out there doing it. Saying like Seth's shooting a way better percentage, blah blah blah, better percentage from three, whatever. No, but Seth Curry has been, very good. It's hard to really measure him so far. You got to see if he keeps it up over the entire season, but right now, he's playing exceptionally. So that kind of takes us into the next segment. Just like everybody else that comes on the show, I got to get your top 5 players in the NBA right now. I gave you a little leeway, man, with the 7. You can mention 7 or 8. That's kind of what I always do. Because I swear mine changes every week. Every week I watch basketball, my top 5 changes. I'm just being completely honest there. But I do want to get your top 5, man.
Well, I got like 6. But I will give you 5, but I'll also give you the 6th guy who easily could be in there.
Yeah.
This is in no particular order because I feel like you're splitting hairs when you're going to just like sit there and actually rank them out.
Yeah.
But I'll give you my 5 best in the NBA at the moment. LeBron James, as long as he's playing, he'll be in that conversation. He's got the longest peak in NBA history. He's been at his peak since I was 8 years old. And since he came into the league, it's unbelievable. Joel Embiid, the way he's playing right now, I think he's in the top 5. We're sitting here ripping the Bucks, but Giannis Antetokounmpo is definitely in the top 5 for me.
Yeah.
That guy, he's at least, I know he's averaging a double-double. It might be near a triple-double right now.
Yeah.
How well he's playing.
Double.
James Harden would be another one. I think he's the best offensive player in the NBA.
Yeah.
I think he has been for a couple of years now. I think you could even argue he's one of the greatest offensive talents to ever play in the NBA. People may look at his points per game. I think it's like 25 for his career and be like, there's plenty of guys that average that. But if you look at like his actual, when he became a starter and since then, it's like 30, 31 points a game. I think he's one of the best offensive talents ever, and he's the best in the game at the moment. And then number 5 would be his teammate, Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go that round. Yeah,
who is just unbelievable. Hall of Famer, first ballot. That's why the Nets are going to be so tough to knock off, man. They have 2 guys that are arguably top 5 players in the NBA. Kyrie Irving's probably in that 10 to 15 range, so he's right there as well. The guy that I had the hardest time, I was really torn between James Harden and Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
That would be the other guy that I would have in that conversation. When I was sitting there ranking them out, that's when I messaged him and be like, man, I'm having such a hard time with this. It's just so hard. You're just splitting hairs because all these guys are at the top of their games. All these guys are literally elite talents, the best of the best in the national basketball.
Different positions. I mean, it is hard. I definitely understand. That's why I asked. So.
Topic, that's what makes it.
Yeah, Vince Quinn gave me an interesting one last week. Damian Lillard. I thought that was interesting. He's a guy that, he's in that top 10, 15, top 20 range. So, I mean, it's all relevant. I had very similar players listed here. I had Bron, KD. I did list Steph Curry, Embiid, and then I have Giannis, Kawhi, and Harden. So I have about 8 players right there. If I had to pick my top 5, I'd probably take Steph out, and I'd probably insert Bron, KD, Embiid, Kawhi, and Giannis. So I think that was 5, right?
Yeah, and that's 4 out of the 5 I had, and the other guy was the 6th guy.
And Harden's right there for me. I mean, you heard it, and then Harden, Steph, Giannis. So I mean, these guys are all right there. They're all amazing players. So we had a very similar one there. I do like that. Before I get you out of here, man, I did want to talk, some NFL with you. Of course, like I said, you cover all the sports. So I do just want to pick your brain, on the Eagles head coaching situation. And then probably close out the show with your Super Bowl picks, man. How did you feel about the Nick Sirianni hire? Or should I ask, how did you feel about the Doug Peterson firing?
I felt like Doug was the scapegoat. I don't even know if it necessarily was a firing. It kind of felt like it was a mutual parting of ways, which I don't blame Doug. I felt like he did earn a little bit more than at least it appeared that he was being given.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, I'm upset with them after this just abysmal season that they just had, but I'm going to support them. Sirianni, he's the guy in charge now. I'm rooting for him. I'm hoping the best. I think it's the best situation for Carson Wentz. Yeah. They added the offensive coordinator from the Chargers today as well.
Yeah.
Who worked wonders with Justin Herbert. I think it's great for Carson Wentz because, look, I wasn't sold on Hurts. I wasn't sold on him when they drafted him. I wasn't sold on him when they were trying to work him into the offense all year. Yeah. I wasn't sold when he started. Granted, I mean, he had a couple good games, but like 52%, I believe, was his completion percentage. That guy, that was the knock on him coming out. He wasn't a great thrower of the football. That's why with the money committed to Carson Wentz, I think it was a good decision to get a head coach that's going to help Wentz regain the status that he had. Not to say that he'll get there, but look, you're all in on that boat already, so you might as well try to make the best of it. So I think it's an interesting hire. Another reason that I feel good about it is because it seems that all Eagles fans hate it. What we seem to be wrong most of the time on those kind of hires. Everybody liked Chip. Granted, he had a couple good years. It didn't really work. Everybody hated Doug. Everybody hated Andy Reid. Charlie Manuel and the Phillies won the World Series. I mean, you can go on and on. So,
and the list is endless.
So, I'm I'm optimistic. Let's put it that way. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I think that's about where I'm at. I mean, I'm like you. I'm a fan at heart, and it's obvious. I made a whole podcast about Philly sports. Like I'm a fan. You know what I mean? I want to express myself, and at the end of the day, I'm rooting for the Eagles. I'm not going to lie to you. I've went through my head so many times trying to figure out who I want to assign blame to for this past season.
Yeah.
Even like leveraging it out to each, department between, Howie Roseman is the biggest snake in the building.
Yeah.
In my all honest opinion, I think he's to blame for mostly everything. I think Doug Peterson, I think he was the one to fall on the sword. A lot of smoke around Carson Wentz. I don't know what to believe with that. Is he this egotistical terror in the locker room? You know what I mean? I don't know. Everything that I've seen from him, on display doesn't display that. But, when you hear it so many times, it does have you questioning. I'm with you. I think when you look at $100 million investment in Carson Wentz, $100 million plus, you don't just give up on that after one season. It's like when you start a business, you're not just going to throw your business away after you flop your first year there. You've already invested too much money. You have to play it out and see it through.
Yep.
And, bringing in a guy like Sirianni who has experience with wide receivers, which that's a big struggle on our team. We cannot develop wide receivers for some reason. He obviously did wonders with the Colts offense. He worked with Frank Reich, who's already worked with Carson. You bring in the offensive coordinator from the Chargers, like you mentioned with Justin Herbert. So they're doing what they have to do to get this situation fixed. And I'm not sure, what I will find interesting is the leash that they give Nick Sirianni. I'm interested to see what window are we looking at here? Is he like part of this total rebuild? Like, are we rebuilding the roster, or are we patching holes again and going for it all again next season? You know what I mean? So, because, in the NFC East, it makes it so easily intriguing to go for the gold because all you need is 9 wins to make the playoffs. So it's so easy for you to want to go for the Lombardi because, once you get to the playoffs, it's everybody's game then, any given Sunday at that point. So you could easily be tricked into wanting to compete immediately. And I don't know what, the Eagles' plan is there. I do agree with you, though. I think the move had to be, whether it's smart or not, with Carson Wentz, whether he's going to be fixed or not, you had to do it. You have to see. And you have to, kind of turn that rock over and see if you can get him back to normal. That was my big thing, too. And that's what I was going to ask you. You already answered it. But Jalen Hurts. If you move on from Carson, you're going to trade Carson, right?
Yeah.
And Jalen Hurts is your guy? I mean, are you sold? Like, you can't be, man, right? I mean, this guy, I love some of the things he does. I do like his leadership and the way he presents himself. I do like that. But that only goes so far. And when you have a limited arm, that's definitely suspect in the NFL. I mean, there's not many guys with a not a rocket for an arm that are doing well in the NFL. And specifically mobile quarterbacks. I mean, Lamar Jackson's, been an MVP candidate last 2-3 seasons, and he's struggled to get one playoff win.
Yep.
So, and Lamar Jackson is the upper echelon of mobile quarterbacks. He's the best one to ever do it. And you see he's still struggling to have success with a dominant defense. And, the Ravens are trying things. So, I'm not sold on the mobile quarterback. I'm not sold genuinely on Jalen Hurts. I think he showed a little bit of signs there, but, that's also defenses adjusting to a mobile quarterback that his sole focus is to run. Carson Wentz is mobile, but he does, he's trying to throw the ball first. So, we got that win against the Saints. I think that clouded everybody's minds. And it was kind of, smoke. It's kind of BS because, the Saints were coming off a short week there. They had Taysom Hill, and they're not good. There's no game plan for Jalen Hurts. Yep. So they were kind of in a tough situation there. And, I think that was, fool's gold with Jalen Hurts there against the Saints. But I guess we'll finish it out, man. How are you feeling about the Super Bowl? How do you feel about the games from yesterday? in the conference championships. You had some great matchups at quarterback. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Obviously, we got the Chiefs and the Bucks going to the Super Bowl. How are you feeling about this whole setup?
I think the biggest takeaway yesterday was teams playing not to lose, which completely backfired because we saw it in the early game with the Packers. Look, they needed the touchdown regardless. That's what blew my mind. Like, the field goal didn't get them within 3. Like, if it gets you within a field goal, I understand.
Right.
But they still needed a touchdown. So to kick the field goal there with a minute, what was it, like 2:05 to play or something, 1:56 maybe. I get they had 3 timeouts, but it backfired. They didn't even get the football back.
Yeah.
That's what my biggest takeaway was, and that's something I think we're going to miss with Doug is, Doug would have went for that. There were times when he would do that, and I would pull my hair out. Like, you don't need to be aggressive all the time, but in a moment like that, the season's on the line, man. I couldn't believe, especially with Aaron Rodgers, I couldn't believe that. And then we saw it in the second game where, all right, Buffalo kicked the field goal before half. I get it. You have a whole half left, but then they come out, they hold KC to a field goal, and then they drive back down the field with like 5 minutes to play in the third. And they kick a field goal again on 4th and 3 inside the 10-yard line to make it a 9-point game. And it's like, you can't just kick field goals, especially against a team like Kansas City. Like, you need to get the ball into the end zone. It felt like they were playing not to lose. And ultimately, it's what did them in. That was my biggest takeaway. Was just I just couldn't believe some of the play calling and the passiveness. Like, you got all the way there just to be passive. It just didn't sit well with me. That's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head. I was actually going to bring up Doug Peterson myself because that's what it instantly reminded me of. You look at Doug Peterson with even Nick Foles at quarterback, and he ran the Philly special.
Yeah.
I mean, that's guts. You know what I mean? And we don't win that game without them getting that touchdown there. You know what I mean? So that's coaching to win. And I think that's something that, you mentioned it. We'll miss that from Doug going for it on 4th down. Because, I mean, we play Madden, whatever the case may be. Yeah. I go for it on 4th down a lot, especially if it's anywhere in 4th and 5 and closer. I mean, I'm going for it.
If it's reasonable,
Yeah, exactly. And then you look at Coach LaFleur in Green Bay, and it's just like, man, you have Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know that the Packers are going to come out and be as good as you are this season.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And to see him, 4th and goal inside the 10, twice kick field goals.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And, and then you mentioned the play calling as well. That one in the first half with Green Bay inside the 10, 3 straight throws to Devontae Adams. Mix it up.
Yeah.
Run the football. They still had Aaron Jones at that point. I didn't understand it. I thought the Packers, really shot themselves in the foot yesterday. Everybody was complaining about the pass interference. I get it. It was inconsistent, but it was pass interference.
It was.
You know what I mean? It's that simple. Would you rather them not call it and then it's a bad call still? So I don't understand the argument there. Give Aaron Rodgers a chance. You didn't give him a chance. He had to sit there and watch the clock run out, with Tom Brady celebrating on the field. And Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions. What else do you need? Yeah. You know what I mean? I just didn't understand it. Shout out to Tom Brady. He got to the Super Bowl once again somehow. And he did it with the Bucks this time, man. It took him 1 season to get them to the Super Bowl. It's ridiculous. It's amazing. And then, I thought the same thing with the Bills, man. Sean McDermott, he just turned into a scaredy cat, man. I don't know what happened. You got to go for it against the Chiefs. Yep. I mean, I was just watching in the first half, the Bills go up 10-0. And you're just kicking field goals. Yep. And the Chiefs go and they score 21 points in like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? That's how fast they score. And when you're only scoring 3s to their 7, it's a wrap for you. You got to be able to keep up with Mahomes. If you get inside that 20, you got to go for 7. And I truly believe that against a team like Kansas City. With that being said, how are you liking the Mahomes and Brady matchup in the Super Bowl?
Well, for what we just talked about, I got to take Kansas City. Yeah. And it's because, like you said, Brady threw 3 picks. Like, that game was there for the taking for the Packers. and they gifted it to the Bucks. So I just think the Chiefs are on another level.
Yeah.
And look, the Bucks have a great defense, but I just don't think they're going to be able to score with them. I just don't. I think Mahomes is just Pat Mahomes, dude, and he's got Harden and Hill. Those guys can fly, man. Like the plays Hill was making yesterday, like he can make you miss in a phone booth, dude. Like it's unbelievable. I like
that one.
It's going to be a good game, but I got to go KC. They just feel like the new. I don't want to say the new Pats, but they feel like they're going to be here for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their tree of coaches they got there, you know, between Bieniemy and Andy Reid. I mean, even if they lose Bieniemy this offseason, you still got Andy Reid. Look at the coaches he's breeded. It's not like you're going to lose too much. But, you know, you mentioned it, Patrick Mahomes. I guess what had me skeptical going into the Bills game was because I didn't know how healthy Patrick Mahomes was.
Yep.
You saw him against the Browns. He was kind of limping with that foot injury, and then he got the concussion. So I just didn't know, you know, if Patrick Mahomes was going to be fully healthy coming in against a good Bills team. Came out and lit him up. I mean, you know, you watched that game yesterday. Travis Kelce somehow wide open.
Yeah,
how's he wide open? I don't understand it. You know what I mean? We look, and you know, everything that I watched yesterday, I just reflected back to what I see with the Philadelphia Eagles, and it disgusts me. You know what I mean? To watch these other offenses move, in the weapons, in the play schemes. I mean, Kansas City and that offense is ridiculous. The routes they run, the schemes. You know, I know Tony Romo was like kind of going through all their play sets last night, and I was just watching some of the formations, and it's just ridiculous the setups that they give their playmakers. And then, you know, you throw in guys like Travis Kelce, you know, possibly maybe one of, you know, top 3, top 5 tight ends of all time, maybe the best ever. And, you know, you throw in Tyreek Hill, who might be the most explosive speed guy ever. I mean, he's so fast, man. Like it blows my mind. And we watched Deshaun Jackson for years. Tyreek Hill is way more explosive than Deshaun Jackson. It's crazy. The way, you know, you mentioned he can make somebody miss in a phone booth. I mean, the way he, you know, switches angles and turns the speed on. I mean, it's ridiculous. He can go to the end zone any time from anywhere.
And the guy overruns him. It's literally just like one little move, and the guy overruns, and he cuts back the other way. Doesn't miss a step at all. He's full speed. It's insane. Yeah. And they get their guys like that the ball in space.
Exactly.
And I know we're wrapping up here, but like a guy like Rieger,
the
Eagles did him no favors getting him the ball in space. I know there's a lot of talk now. Oh, he's not fast, or we didn't really get to see it, man. Get him the ball in space and let's go to work.
Exactly. And you see. Now, I'm not saying, you know, Rager's Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying that, obviously, but he's a speed guy. He's explosive. He should be put in the same situations, and quite frankly, he just wasn't. And you know, part of it was missing some time to injury, I'm sure. But the other part of it is just the offensive scheme that does our wide receivers no favors. But yeah, with the Super Bowl, you know, as much as it's Tom Brady, you know, the GOAT, I'm a true believer in Tom Brady. I think he's, you know, one of the greatest achieving quarterback of all time. Probably not the most talented. The greatest achieving, you know, he's a winner. And, you know, as much as I believe that, you know, this Kansas City team, when they're rolling, man, it's hard to imagine. I mean, they kind of shut down the Buffalo Bills yesterday, who had one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Bucs I don't even think they're operating on the Bills level of offense in all reality. You know, when Josh Allen's really going, Kansas City was able to get in Josh Allen's head, I believe. You know, he made a lot of dumb plays yesterday, taking sacks that he probably shouldn't have, that really set Kansas City
early, where he lost like 30 yards.
Yeah.
And they went up 9-0, was it? Or it was
that was weird.
Before they punted and went up 9-0. He took like a 30-yard sack. Dude.
Yeah, reminded me of Wentz, man. I swear.
Yeah.
Not throwing the ball away, literally. But yeah, you compared him to the Pats, which is a good comparison. I'd even compare the Chiefs to, like the Warriors of a couple years ago. You know? Like, I mean, they're just on fire. And, you look at the matchups, it just doesn't make sense for anybody to beat them. It just really doesn't. They have the experience now, compared to a Bucs team. Tom Brady has experience, Gronk does, but the rest of those guys haven't done anything. You know what I mean? So, the Chiefs, it's just hard, on paper to think that anybody could beat them. And they just got guys in key positions. They're just built so nicely. You look at Tyrann Mathieu. They got Chris Jones on the defensive line. So they just got, Frank Clark on the outside. They got pieces everywhere, in the key spots that make great teams. You look at our Eagles Super Bowl team. That's exactly the way we were built.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are built better, except, they have Patrick Mahomes on top of all of that. And you have Andy Reid, who's one of the best coaches ever. So, man, it's like good for the Chiefs, but I'm just like, the outlook for the NFL over the next couple of years. I mean, I know there's some other teams that are going to rise up, the tides always change, but it's hard to imagine if they can keep that team in Kansas City, just that core of Kelsey, Mahomes, and Hill. Just build around that for eternity, and you're going to be fine, man. I don't know what to think about it.
That's the good thing with the NFL, though, like you just said, as other teams will rise up, is you can turn it around pretty quickly in the NFL if you do it correctly. I mean, a couple of years ago with the Eagles, they went from 7-9, they were 13-3, and they won the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah,
you can turn it around. You just have to make the right decisions. So there are going to be teams that emerge, and the reason to feel okay about the Eagles moving forward is I believe there hasn't been back-to-back division champs in the NFC East since 2004. I believe it's going all the way back to then.
Yeah.
So somebody else is going to win this division this year, right? I mean, you would think it wouldn't be Washington compared to the trends. Yeah. So why not, Yeah,
it makes sense. Last thing before I get you out of here, once again, Kevin, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate you. This was a really fun one for me. Really got to pick your brain, man. I'm happy to get this done today. With the 6th pick, who are you drafting for the Eagles, man?
Devontae Smith, if he's there.
Boom.
If he's on the board, that's where I'm going. But I will say this. They need to take the best player on their board.
Yeah.
If Devontae Smith isn't that guy, I mean, I wouldn't agree with it, but
right.
Draft the best player on the board. They need to stop picking for need and just pick the guy that you think is going to be the best player.
Yeah. When you're in the top 10, you go with the best available. I feel like that should be like a law. You know what I mean? Like it should be illegal not to do that.
Even if they wanted to take the offensive lineman out of Oregon, it's not a sexy pick, but I mean, we just saw it with Lane Johnson. They took him in the top 5 like 9 years ago. He been arguably one of the 2-3 best tackles in football the past decade. Yeah. That's not the direction I would want to go, but whoever they take needs to be a Pro Bowl caliber player. They need to be a building block. Personally, I would take Smith, but if they want to go Surtain, I'm with that. They want to go Chase. They want to go Sewell. They want to go Parsons from Penn State. I'm cool with that as well. Yeah. Just needs to be a guy who you're going to be able to be a building block for your roster. Yeah. And
I think, that what you just said says enough. I mean, you just gave them plenty of options that we wouldn't be upset with. So if you pick outside of those, then, go to hell. You have options. It's the 6th pick. But yeah, I'm with you. Depending on if it's Chase or Devontae Smith there, I'd probably go with either one of those guys. We need some explosiveness on the offense. I know we just drafted Rager. We have Sanders, but it's only going to make life easier for the quarterback, for the offense. We have a number 1 receiver in there. But we'll leave it at that.
One of the good hits from Florida. I mean, granted, I know they have Goddard. Ertz is probably on his way out.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they love to. Well, at least they did love to run the 12.
Yeah. It's interesting.
2 tight ends. Kyle Pitts is another guy who you could argue is probably one of the best players in the entire draft. So, if you want him to come in, you want to run him and Goddard. I'm on board with that as well, man. That's another weapon.
That's that's kind of something I've actually been working myself up for.
Yeah,
because it's something the Eagles would do. And people are going to complain about it. They're going to complain. We already have Goddard. You didn't use Ertz and Goddard right, whatever. They're going to complain. But in reality, like you said, he's one of the best players, one of the best playmakers in the draft.
Yep.
Even if you draft him and your plans are maybe you're not going to keep Goddard. You know what I mean? Maybe you're not going to invest that much money into the tight end position. You get Kyle Pitts on, a 4 or 5 year contract of rookie deal. So, that might be the route. You never know, man. And if he's the best player available, why not? You have to go that route. There's a strong chance with the way things are laying out, that Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith both might be gone. And that's ridiculous for wide receivers to go that early. But if they're that level of talent and you got a bunch of young quarterbacks that need wide receivers in front of us, there's a good chance that it might happen, man.
Well, there's probably a lot of teams, the Eagles included, who would have took Justin Jefferson much higher if they realized that he really was the talent that he was.
Yeah.
He set rookie records, right? I mean, first All-Pro, I believe.
Yeah, craziness, man.
He probably would have went much higher in the draft if teams were like, all right, he's going to be this player this quickly. But Devontae Smith certainly didn't help us in the title game when he dropped 12 for 220 and 3 scores in the first half. Definitely didn't help the Eagles there.
Right, man. And Jamar Chase has been coveted since last year.
I mean, he was the other guy but Jefferson. It was Joe Burrow. Yeah.
Everybody thinks he's better than Jefferson. So, that's yet to be seen. But
that's a high bar. But
definitely highly coveted players there. You look at Devontae Smith, won a Heisman as a wide receiver.
Out of nowhere, too. Like coming into the year, I would imagine his odds were probably 50-1 to win that award.
Right. Gotta add some supreme talent to the team. That's ultimately what it comes down to. The team needs talent.
Yeah.
There's too many holes to worry about. Picking position, football. No, just need talent. But we'll let it there, man. I'm gonna let you get some rest for work tonight, bro. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on, KD. If there's anything you want to say to my listeners out there, if you want to plug yourself in one more time before I get you out of here, feel free, my man.
If you're a baseball fan, check out the Bullpen Blues podcast. It's with myself and David Esser, who Scotty mentioned earlier. It's our coworker over at Section 215. We got the Phillies covered over there if you're a big baseball fan. But other than that, go Flyers, go Sixers, go Birds. Let's get the draft season. Let's start the draft for a little bit. And the Phillies are coming up, so times are looking up in Philly sports. We're through that dreck of the Philadelphia Eagles season. The Sixers and Flyers look like contenders.
Yeah.
So
before you leave, what's the word on JT Realmuto, man?
I think the Braves is just a ploy to up the price for the Phillies personally.
Yeah,
because I know that they apparently were in on him. I just don't see it making sense. I think he will be back with the Phillies. I would expect something here within the next week or two. We'll see. At this point, a lot of his suitors have already signed guys or they put money elsewhere to where it's kind of left the Phillies at the forefront. They're the team that has the most to gain and probably the best chance to sign him. So I would expect he'll be back in Philadelphia.
That's good news, man. That's what I wanted to hear. Close the show out with that, man. Thank you for coming on the show again, Kevin. Be sure to go give this guy a follow on Twitter. Like I said, he's always bringing content and great takes. You can find him at K.Dickson53. Is that right?
That's right.
Here we go. I'm plugging you in, man. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and rate the video here. Be sure to like it. Don't dislike it, right? Go ahead and give me a follow if you have the time, if you don't already, on Instagram, on Twitter, at Scotty Drowned. You can find the sports page at ST Philly Sports 1. That's a wrap for this episode. Thank you once again, KD. Peace.